boss.
I like this trade for both teams, honestly.
I'm with you. I agree for once. Today is Saturday, February 1st, 2025. Ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode. If you guys new, welcome. My name is Zach, joined as always by Preston. You beauties. Preston, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's good to be back in person. So I feel like this is the first in-person recording we've done in like about a month, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because you went on vacation, and schedules have been kind of all over the place, and football, now the Bill season's over, it kind of makes things a little easier. So hopefully we'll be able to do this more consistently now.
It makes things so much easier because we have time to record in person Saturday, because usually with our recording schedule, Saturdays we're free and stuff. Well, with the Bills having home playoff games, I have Bills seasons for you guys that didn't know. So I go and tailgate 5-6 hours before the game, and I don't have time to edit. He doesn't have time to edit, so it's just easier to do it online, get the process out faster. Now we're here. We're ready to lock in for the season.
Yes, sir.
There's a lot that's going on. So let's get into our quick hitters before we get into why you guys are here. So the Utah names are down to the final three. Originally, Wasatch, or whatever that name was.
So that's like a mountain, right?
I don't know I didn't bother looking that up, but that's not one of the final three options anymore. That was booted 2 days after it was announced. Probably
I don't
not
think that's
even
a good name.
So you have the Utah Mammoth, Utah Outlaws, and Utah Hockey Club.
So honestly, out of the three, I think the best name for a hockey team, honestly, I like Hockey Club. I think it's simple, straight to the point. I like it. If I had to pick one out of the three that I think is probably going to win, it's probably going to be the Mammoth.
I think Mammoth is the easy choice. I love it. I know you love Hockey Club.
I don't love it. I really don't like any of these three. The one I liked the best wasn't even a finalist. I liked Utah Ice a lot. I thought that was sick.
The Ice, I was on the Yeti bandwagon. I wanted Yeti.
Yeti probably was going to be the name, and then was the Yeti Cooler Company. It was a trademark issue. Yeah.
Fucking suck my dick, for fuck's sakes. Holy shit. I'm okay with Mammoth because I don't know. It feels like Yeti's what? Like one of those a Bigfoot type of thing.
It's
and then
an
a
urban
Mammoth
legend,
is you guys know back in the Ice Age, the elephant looking furry things.
You've seen the movie Ice Age, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those
dude,
things, huge tusk and everything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind that.
I really liked Utah Ice. I was probably the only person on that.
What the fuck would the logo be? 2 ice cubes overlapping?
It could just be some variation of Utah. I mean, their basketball team's called the Jazz.
I mean, that's true. And then they have just the J with the basketball or whatever. I think that's creative. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you could have a figurine skating on ice or something.
It could be anything, or it could be some kind of variation of Utah. I don't know. I mean, I'm more curious to see what their team colors are going to be.
I honestly, I want them to stick with their current ones and that purple in there. What we talked about over the offseason before the colors got. I mean, I think purple would be a nice little mix. I think
it would be a cool little homage to the Arizona Coyotes too. Cause they had the little purple in there. I think that would be a cool little homage to their past history.
Yeah, I think that would be sick too. I just think that do you know when these names are going to be the final name's going to be?
I'd imagine the end of the season. Maybe fan appreciation night. It's okay, thank you. We had a great first year in Utah. We're really excited. Now here's the team name.
Yeah.
And probably get a jersey reveal over the summer.
I mean, I'm excited for the jersey reveal. I love jerseys, if you guys couldn't tell. This is more for the aesthetics for you guys.
Yeah.
It's not a blank wall. But hear me out, okay? Utah Yeti, if I like the jersey. Not Yeti. I don't know why I said Yeti. Sorry, it's on my mind. The Utah Hockey Club's jersey. Depending on how much it is, because if it's $350,
I mean, all the jerseys are expensive.
Yeah,
though.
that's true. Fanatics can fucking blow me. That's twice in this video in 5 minutes. I don't know. I think one would look good, especially if this bad boy Dylan Cousins gets traded by July 1st.
If I had to pick one to take down, I'd probably take down the Saad jersey or the James Neal jersey.
I think I'd take this because this dude isn't even in the league anymore, right?
Yeah, I know, but this jersey is super old.
That is true.
Taylor Hall, he won MVP on the Devils, so we'll keep that up.
I mean, yeah, Wyatt Marner, it's covered by the Howie's hat, but yeah, I don't know. I think a jersey on here would look sick for Utah.
Yeah,
I mean, how it looks.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah,
I
don't know. The second thing on our bullet points, the salary cap. The salary cap is going to explode.
Yeah.
Going into 2028. So the next 3 seasons, the cap projections: 25, 26, 95.5 million. No, not a bad jump. The jump from 25, 26 to 26, 27, $104 million is where the salary cap ceiling is going to be. And then 27, 28 is going to be $113.5 million. This motherfucker, Connor McDavid, and every other player in this league that is due up for contracts, they're going to be getting the bag. And we're talking about these teams are going to start throwing money at these players, at these big fish in these like littler markets, and be like, you know what? Here's $15 million to play for us for the next 8 years. Or maybe the players and their parties are going to be like, we want $16 million or we're not playing for you at this point.
I mean, I think that makes it more likely because, I mean, the salary cap's going up next year by $7 million. Yeah, $7.5 million. So I think if you're a team like Edmonton, you're looking at that as like, well, that's our Connor McDavid money.
Oh, yeah. If you're Edmonton and you're some of these other teams like contenders like Vegas,
any team's cap strap, like there's a bunch of teams like Tampa Bay's right up against the cap.
Most teams are within, I think, like $3 to $5 million of the
There's
cap
a lot
ceiling.
of teams that are like pretty damn close.
But I mean, this is where now we're gonna get like we have this conversation. It feels like every year with the cap going up since COVID. That okay, the cap's going up a few $1 million. Now this is where players are gonna get paid more, and this is where yada yada yada. Like we're seeing it. We're now seeing guys get $14 million contracts, and 20 years ago, the highest contract was you'd get like $8 million.
Yeah, I mean when Sidney Crosby signed his deal, that was one of the richest deals in NHL history.
And now that's
8.7.
Right.
Now that's like a good second line player.
Right, and that's a bargain for a guy like Sidney Crosby now. So you can get, let's say 27, 28 when it's up to 113 or 114 million dollars. You're gonna get a third liner making like $8 million at this point.
I don't know if it's ever gonna get that high for a third liner. I could see like second line guys getting somewhere between $6 to $8 million, like a good second line player. Third liners, I still can't see you getting higher than $5 million a year.
I mean, I guess that's more reasonable. Maybe the $8 million was a little bit
first,
too high.
what we're going to see is I think teams are going to make sure to pay their superstars right then and there. It wouldn't shock me by the time we get to 27, 28 that these players, like superstar level players, like, you know, maybe like when Connor Bedard gets his first big boy contract, he's pushing like 16, 17, $18 million.
That would be fucking wild. I mean, I'm happy that the players are going to be able to get paid like in the other pro sports. You have NBA 10th man.
Oh, yeah, making like $20 million a year, yeah.
It's like dumb, and like I get the NFL, you have the quarterbacks and receivers and corners like making millions and millions, like $40 million a year. Like I think the average money a starting quarterback makes in the NFL is like $35 million or something like that.
Then my question also for this is like with the salary cap going up, does this potentially free up money for Toronto to keep a guy like Mitch Marner?
Yes, it definitely does. Keep a guy like Marner. Because, listen, I know I brought up the point a couple episodes ago that they should look to possibly trading Marner for Elias Pettersson. But when you look at how important Marner is to that core and to that team, I think Marner right now is playing the best hockey of his career. He's 27, 28, something like that. He's going to get paid. He's going to get 13.
It's hard for me to see him getting more than Matthews, though. It really
Matthews
is.
Getting 14 or 13?
13.25.
I wonder if they match it and just go side.
I would just say 13. You're not getting Austin Matthews money. He's our best player. He's our captain. You're not getting paid more than him.
A 60-goal scorer. But Marner's like an 80-assist guy, though.
You're not getting paid more than you.
No.
Matthews, yeah.
Don't get paid more than Matthews. But like even like 13.25, I'd be okay paying him. And like, but the difference is like, okay, because the contracts would be going into the same year. I think that's perfectly fine because they would both be identical contracts, whatever. But what some teams can't do, and I'm not accusing Colorado of doing this because I don't know everything, but setting a hard cap internally saying you're not getting more than this player because he's our best player, but then he signed the contract a few years ago and the cap's going up. Like if you're a team, you don't want to go into that because let's say, I don't even know an example to use, but let's say there's a star player that signs a contract this offseason, right? Let's say he gets $14 million. And then let's say the cap in 4 years goes up, say another $25 million, right? So now you have some more money to work with. So there's your second best player is due up for a contract. You cannot go in there and be like, you're getting $14 million or less. Well, the cap's going up. You have more money to pay me. And this can't be a situation where if you're the GM, you go to the player who's getting your star player that's getting $14 million and be like, yeah, are you okay if he gets more? No, it's a fucking business decision. You give him more money. And if I highly doubt if giving your second best player more money, not by a lot, but giving him more money because the cap's going up, I highly doubt it's going to really hinder any relationship between the team
I
and
doubt it will, because the NHL isn't like the NFL or NBA, well, there's where you can renegotiate contracts. Because it's like we see that in the NFL all the time, where like a quarterback at the time might get the highest contract in NFL history. Then 5 years later, it's like a bargain bin contract, and then they rework the deal to give him more money.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it time and time again with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. It's at the time when they signed it, best deal. They were like one of the top deals, and now they're like ranked 12th and 13th in the league, and they rework them every year. So I totally get that. So Brandon Saad ended up signing a deal with Vegas after being waived by St. Louis, won by 1.5. We're not going to say too much with this, but Brandon Saad just adds a veteran presence to that Vegas team.
I don't think it hurts.
And, I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt. Now, Vegas is 1.6 over the cap ceiling, but again, they haven't. I don't think they've waived somebody because when I was on cap wages, they said they were rostered 24 out of 23 players.
Do they have a guy going on IR?
I have no idea. But that was as of this morning, so I don't know if it updated or if they made a transaction.
They're probably going to send a guy down to.
They're going to have to before they play their next game.
Waive a player. We'll see. They'll figure it out. They wouldn't have signed the guy if they didn't think they can make the money work.
Right, and I think he helps the team. Okay, not dramatically, but I think he helps the team for sure. And even if he's not going to play top minutes, I mean, he's probably going to play third line minutes, maybe. I don't know if I want to say fourth line, but he could play fourth line minutes. And Elliot Friedman had a little interesting thing to say on his 32 Thoughts podcast, saying that the reason the fall happened with St. Louis is because he wasn't forechecking well. And I guess when Saad plays well, his forecheck is top of the game. But he wasn't forechecking to St. Louis, so they were like, he's not providing much offense, not much defense. Let's just let him go. And that's just what happened in St. Louis. So that's
interesting.
That is interesting. So.
I mean, I think he'll go to Vegas with something to prove.
Yeah.
And I think he'll play better. He's going to a much better team.
Going to a cup contender.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's got to be pretty excited about his opportunity. Blue Jackets legend, Brandon Saad.
Arguably two of his best years of his career.
They were the two best years of his career, yeah.
Statistically? Yeah.
Yes, statistically, yes.
All right, so we basically had the trade deadline come early. We're talking about like 5 weeks early. It's March 7th, 2025. That's a Friday at 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., whatever it is. However, though, we've had 4 trades over the past 24 hours. I'm going to go chronological order. We can go over each of them. So last night, we had the Flames acquiring Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost, and then the Flyers acquire Jakob Pelletier. I really hope I pronounced that right. I'm sorry if I didn't. Andrei Kuzmenko, a second-round pick and a seventh-round pick, both 2025.
This is an interesting deal to me. This kind of came out of nowhere. Morgan Frost was a name I heard in rumors last year around the deadline, and even the summer of the Flyers weren't super high on him, and they were looking to potentially move him. I don't think the value they got from them is bad. I think Kuzmenko's a serviceable forward. I mean, obviously, Farabee and Frost, I got to look at Farabee's contract because I don't think Frost was on a pretty it wasn't on
Farabee's contract isn't that bad, I don't think. I think it's like between 5 to 7. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting to me that, Calgary does have some picks to move around. They have 2 second-round picks. I think they traded their own second-round pick, which should be a higher value. So their other second-round pick they have is Colorado. So that's the better chance of that being a later pick. Joel Farabee has a $5 million cap, but he's only 24 years old, so, you never know with him.
It's there. The potential is there with Farabee and Frost. I love this for the Flames. I really do.
I mean, I didn't expect. He had 50 points last year. He is having a down season this year. His scoring's down by a lot. He had 22 goals last year in 82 games. Through 50, he only has 8.
I've also heard that part of that is because of torts.
It wouldn't surprise me. I love Tortorella, but I could definitely see him forcing the system and holding some players back.
Yeah, I mean, there's some guys in that Flyer system that are playing better than others, and you might not think that are more skillful. And for the Flames side of things, I think they went into this trade, and then when they completed it, were a better team. They got better. And
I do think the Flames got better for this. It was just interesting because the Flames are in a really interesting spot where like they realistically have a good chance to make the playoffs.
It's either them or Vancouver getting in.
Yeah, just looking at the standings, like one of those two teams is probably going to make the playoffs. I mean, St. Louis still has an outside chance. I wouldn't count them out completely. Utah isn't completely out of it, but
aren't they like 5 or 6 points
5
back
points,
each? Yeah.
6 points, 6 and 7 respectively.
Okay.
Utah 6, St. Louis is 7.
Okay.
So never say never with either of those teams.
Enter Justin Bieber.
Yeah. But Calgary, like I was saying, is in a weird spot where, okay, they make the playoffs, great. They're not winning a playoff series. If they make the playoffs, they're either playing the Jets or most likely the Jets or whoever wins the Pacific Division.
Vegas or Edmonton.
So Vegas, Edmonton,
How
LA.
far back is LA from
10 points.
Okay, they're not getting there. Unless they go on a ridiculous run.
Calgary might catch they're 1 point out from behind the Kings of getting the third spot in the Pacific.
They're 1 point out?
Yeah. LA's been playing like shit lately.
Yeah, eat that, Flames haters. Fuck.
So, I mean, realistic, it could be possible that Vancouver and Calgary both make the playoffs and the Kings don't right now.
I don't, dude. I really want LA to make the playoffs. That would be.
I mean, they've been in the playoff spot all year, but they're 2-7-1 in their last 10 games.
They're
They've lost
struggling.
3 in a row.
Now they've lost a couple guys to injury.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I think no matter what, even if they make the playoffs as well, I think they're losing in the first round if they play LA or Vegas.
What? Okay.
Not LA. I mean, Vegas or Edmonton.
Yeah. I think LA's a first round exit, and then for Calgary is the team where they'll get in. Let's say they get the second wild card spot, for example, but they'll be at like 95 points.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Calgary went into this trade knowing that they have the team. Not only is a playoff spot wide open for them because they're fighting for Vancouver, and they see Vancouver going through all the turmoil. They got killed against Dallas last night. Calgary, it feels like there's almost the final 8 teams that it feels like are going to make the playoffs in a playoff spot right now.
I'm definitely not counting Vancouver out of it.
I'm not counting them out either.
Point back.
Right, I'm not counting them out either. But I'm just saying, like, Calgary sees what's going on in Vancouver. They're going to try to take advantage of it. And I think we'll get to Vancouver later, but I thought they got better in their trades too. And with Calgary, getting Joel Farabee and getting Morgan Frost for guys to help your depth out now. And I think Andrei Kuzmenko wasn't helping them out yet enough. And when they got him from Vancouver in this season.
Well,
and then
Farabee and Frost is both younger players, too, and I do think it makes the Flames were the buyers in this trade.
Yes. Oh, they were. And on Philly's side, I don't really get what direction they're getting except to get. I mean, I like Pelletier.
I mean, Kuzmenko, that's not really.
I think that's more like I felt like this was an NHL trade. You just get 2 players for 2 players, plus the draft picks are thrown in to add a little bit extra value. But that 7th round pick is practically meaningless. So really, you're getting the 2 players for the 2 players plus the 2nd round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Kuzmenko is also as a free agent at the end of the year.
Is he a UFA then?
Yeah.
So I mean, from Philly, like I don't like this from Philly now. I don't know. Maybe it definitely turns around. But I mean, we'll see with Philly. I mean, I do think the Flames won this trade as of now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think Farabee can bounce back, and I like Morgan Frost as a player.
Yeah.
It's just interesting. I think Calgary's kind of trying to retool right now because I think that they know they're stuck with that Huberdeau contract, and Kadri's been better than Huberdeau.
Kadri's been good this season,
but that contract's still not the greatest either.
What is he making? 7?
More than that.
8, 9, 10?
Let me pull it up. I mean, Calgary has a ton of cap space. Oh no, it is 7. I thought he was making more than for some reason, and Huberdeau's getting 10.5. So
yeah, Huberdeau quite literally immovable. How many more years does Kadri have left?
Kadri, I think, has 6 years left.
Oh.
No, he has 5 years left. 4 years after this year. He's on his third year of a 7-year deal.
You'll be able to move that contract in 2 years, Calgary, don't worry. Maybe it won't even fucking matter in 2 years when the cap is like $3 million.
I think Kadri is movable, even this offseason with the cap going up. I think Calgary might have to retain a little bit of money, but I think if they did want to move Kadri, I think that would be possible.
That could be in Calgary's best interest if they really wanted to move on from him. That's a story for a different day.
Well, they're not trading him this year. I mean, if if they want to have any chance to do anything in the playoffs, they need him.
They need him. Yes,
Yeah.
he's one of their best players outside of Wolf and Anderson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if they do end up trading Rasmus Anderson. I don't think they do.
No, I don't think so either. I heard that Calgary and Anderson are going to agree on a deal before the deadline.
Interesting. Maybe
they're talking. I mean,
the season probably went better than either of them thought.
Yeah, and I mean, I think an 8x8 deal is in play here for Anderson, which I think he deserves. He's played up to it. He's had a good season. He's been a great defenseman for them for the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
I love him. Let's go on to trade number 2. And this one was one that we kind of all expected, with the Rangers acquiring JT Miller, Eric Brandstrom, Jackson Dorrington, and then the Canucks acquire Filip, Victor Mancini, and a 2025 first-round pick is top 13 protected.
Yeah, this trade's a bit underwhelming to me, honestly.
I think the Rangers won this strictly because they got the best player.
I agree with you.
And this isn't – if they got somebody else besides Filip coming back to Vancouver, I think it would have been okay. If they somehow still snagged Ryan Lindgren, I thought Vancouver would have won the trade. Genuinely. Get a toxic cancer out of your locker room. Get somebody who's making too much noise. Ship him off to New York across the country. And then you end up getting Chytil and Lindgren. But they don't get Lindgren. They just get Chytil. And Chytil is not a dynamic playmaker that JT Miller is.
If I was the Canucks, the player I would have been pushing really hard to get in this trade is Andrei Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if New York even made him available, though, because he's been not having the greatest year, but I still think he has a lot of potential in him. I think getting him out of New York would do him some good.
Yeah, I think getting him out of New York would definitely help him as a player, and maybe Drury still likes his potential, but if he still likes his potential,
he is a good player.
He is good. I mean, we saw it in his first couple of years. He was actually great for New York, and then just the coaching has just kind of buried him and forced him to play more of a defensive style game, which it's not him as a player. He's a great puck-moving offensive defenseman, and I think putting him in Vancouver would do wonders, and Vancouver needed the defensive help, and I'm surprised they didn't get a D-man. Now, they did work out a trade later that we'll get to, that they did get a good defense D-man. But, I mean, Vancouver. And this trade, when I saw this trade, I was like, JT Miller going back to Vancouver won the trade. JT Miller going back to New York, they won the trade because they didn't get anything else besides Chytil. And that top 13 protected first-round pick, that's probably going to be a draft pick between 20 and 24, I'd say, at this point. So I don't know. I think the Rangers won this trade 1,000%.
I mean, I the one thing that you got to remember is, Miller's a 31-year-old player who's on year 2 of a 7-year contract. So
at $8 million.
Yeah, at $8 million, which in a few years won't really be a crazy cap hit. But I mean, the Canucks got out of that contract, so let's not overlook that. I mean, I don't think the Canucks are done yet either.
No.
I mean, as we move on to the next trade that they made. But yeah, the Canucks are in a really interesting situation right now. We went in depth on them earlier in the week. So,
do you want to read off the next trade?
Sure. So the other trade this happened shortly after the JT Miller trade happened. The Canucks flipped the first round pick they got from New York to Pittsburgh, along with Melvin Fernstrom, Vincent Desharnais, and Danton Heinen, to acquire Marcus Pettersson and Drew O'Connor.
Now this is a trade they won, I think. I don't care that they got rid of a first round pick in this trade. They won the trade. They addressed 2 needs. Now I know they still got rid of some offense with JT Miller in the Rangers trade, but they needed a defenseman like Pettersson. They got him. Plus you get a guy in O'Connor who can play third line minutes for you.
I think you got to kind of look at this trade as a part of the JT Miller trade and kind of make it one big trade. Because it's probably that first round pick is what's going to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson.
Yeah, it is.
So, because the rumor was that they were looking for a defenseman, a good NHL defenseman in return for either Pettersson or JT Miller, and the Rangers didn't give one up, so they take that first round pick, ship it off to Pittsburgh, who needs the picks.
Yeah.
I don't think this is a end of the world move for Pittsburgh either. I mean, there was rumors all year that they were pretty much everyone was available except for Sidney Crosby in a trade, and they desperately need draft picks. And they need to rebuild their draft stock. So let me try to find Vancouver on here. Look at their roster. Bear with me.
Oh, you're good.
It's kind of nice sometimes when we have the computers in front of us and we can just
just pull it up. Yeah.
Yeah. So Marcus Pettersson, 28-year-old defenseman. He is a UFA at the end of the year, so they kind of have no leverage now in contract talks where they just traded for him, and you got to pay him now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much money he's going to get. How much is he making right now?
He is getting $4 million.
So if I'm Vancouver,
5 or 6, I think was fair.
Yeah, I honestly I'd go 5.5. Give him. I mean, this kind of I think what Vancouver did last night with trading, I think this kind of holds the Elias Pettersson trade, and I think we're not going to see it until the draft. I think would be the latest. If I'm thinking logically, I don't know if Pettersson gets traded before the deadline at this point. I think maybe that's out the window now. Depending on how things go, if Pettersson plays better during the stretch, maybe they hold on to him and just don't trade him at all. Or maybe they decide they still want to get rid of him if they have a good package. But I mean, I know Columbus was on Pettersson. I know Buffalo was. Like, I don't know if Pettersson gets traded at this point.
Yeah, I think this might be either a closer to the deadline move or maybe even pre-draft trade.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sitting with Chris yesterday at the Sabres game, and he was like reading me tweets that he saw, and I guess Vancouver reporters are saying that the players are still pissed because they didn't trade the right person out of the room.
They wanted. Are we thinking Pettersson? They wanted out.
I can't think of anybody else they'd be blaming.
So all of these people are making it out to feel like it's JT Miller's fault.
I can get where the Vancouver players are coming from, kind of being. I mean, they had to have known that something was going to happen, but he's one of their leaders on their team. He's assistant captain, one of their best players. I mean, it hurts when you lose a guy like that, no matter what the circumstances are. And, maybe players are just, caught being a little emotional and, maybe more vocal or more visibly frustrated than normally. That's definitely a thing. I mean, NHL players are humans too. They get emotional and they can get angry and upset. A lot of people forget that. You see them on TV all the time. They're regular people.
They're not robots out here. Like they're just like us, except they're playing professional hockey.
Yeah, like they still have feelings and relationships and friends. Like they just lost a friend.
Right. They lost a friend. They lost a brother. Like I mean, and he goes all the way to New York. It's not like an in-conference trade.
I mean, they'll keep in touch, but
of course.
Yeah, but it's hard to lose a guy like that out of your room. Like
it is,
like one of your best players, assistant captain. So Vancouver's a really interesting team this year, but I don't think this rules out a Pettersson trade, though. I still don't think it does.
You know what I'd love to see at this point, after hearing about the players are pissed that they traded the wrong guy? Trade Pettersson at this point. Like,
yeah, I mean, when Jim Rutherford talked to the media, he the impression I got and what a lot of other people get is like they're expecting to lose both of them.
I mean, I think you just start fresh. I think you trade Pettersson and then just sign Blockbuster at this point. He's going to be a UFA.
Why would he want to be a part of that, though? Depending on because I don't think the return they got for JT Miller was the greatest. I mean, they get a defenseman they wanted in I can't remember, Marcus Pettersson.
Yeah.
But still, like if you go and then trade your Elias Pettersson, too many Petterssons, and then they got Elias Pettersson, the defenseman too. But that indicates to me that you're kind of moving towards a rebuild. And I mean, we'll see if they do end up trading Elias Pettersson. You got to specify that now. The forward Elias Pettersson. Depending on what the return may be, like his value might be deflated right now too because of the whole situation where teams know that especially if there's still unrest in Vancouver, that they might be looking to move on from him and try to steal him away, like JT Miller. I mean, I think Pettersson is the more attractive player to me in a trade. He's younger. I know it is a bit of a higher salary, but he's 26 years old.
He has 7 more years after the season at $11 million.
Yeah, you have the contract control. And for a lot of teams, like Columbus and Buffalo make sense.
Yes.
They're some of the few teams that A, have the cap space to take on the contract, and B, have the young players that Vancouver would want in return for a guy like Pettersson. So depending on the return, this is just assuming we trade him. They very well may not. Maybe they don't trade Pettersson, things get better, and then they re-sign Blockbuster, and it is what they just had to move on JT Miller. Like we won't know until a few months from now.
Bro said you're on the Vancouver Canucks. No, I'm just kidding. I don't mean to be that guy. Sorry, I had to say it was
you know what I
impulsive.
meant.
I
meant
know.
like me and
I
you.
know. That was impulsive. I think final thoughts here before we move on to the next trade. I think that with the no movement clause not kicking in until July 1st, I think this is your opportunity to trade Pettersson wherever you want him to go for the best package before now he has all to say. And I think that's where the Canucks might have the advantage.
If they are going to move him, they are moving him before July 1st.
Yes, otherwise
100%.
he's going to be a Vancouver Canuck unless shit hits the ceiling fan.
Or he asks for a trade.
Yes, correct. I agree with you there. All right, so the last trade that happened, it ended up happening today around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. So these Stars end up acquiring Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci, and the Sharks acquire a 2025 first-round pick. It's a conditional 2025 pick, which is Winnipeg's fourth-round pick, which can upgrade to a third-round pick if Dallas advances to the Stanley Cup Finals this season. Mike Greer, round of a fucking applause.
I like this trade for both teams, honestly.
I'm with you. I agree for once.
Because Mikael Granlund's been one of the better players for not the Canucks, the Sharks this season. You know, he has 45 points, 52 games on a team that struggles to score.
He's been one of their best players, one of their best forwards. He's been scoring.
He's a good center still.
He is.
I think this bolsters Dallas's depth. And I'm not really high on Cody Ceci, but in Dallas will be like the 6th, 7th defenseman. Decent depth for the playoffs.
I mean,
because going into the trade deadline, just looking at the big trade board, I thought Mikael Granlund was one of the more valuable players that was going to be available. Last year of his contract, doing well on a pretty bad San Jose team, and I don't know if he was worth a first-round pick. Maybe that it was a second that got moved to a first because they threw in CC as well, and they just see that little extra value. But then on Dallas's end, this is a team that's all in to win the Stanley Cup. And you do I think this is a good depth move for them now. Their center depth is crazy.
It's crazy. And the first round pick to Dallas doesn't mean shit. They're a Stanley Cup contending team. And as long as Dallas makes it far and doesn't choke in the playoffs, praying that it's not, that pick's going to be 28 to 32. It's not really going to matter much. It's basically going to be like an early second round pick at that point. So, I mean, that could be a thing too, where it's Cody Ceci will give you a first round pick instead of a second round pick. Fuck it, why not?
Yeah, I think the Sharks got genuinely a good return for two players that weren't going to be around, and I think Dallas bolstered their depth. I think this is a win-win.
I think this is the most even trade out of the four that have happened.
This makes sense. From a whole big picture, this whole trade just makes complete sense to me.
This is a complete where the Sharks know where they are, the Dallas Stars know where they are. Let's make each other better as an organization and better spots in the current state that the team is in, and I think that's great. And I don't know how long this could have been a Dallas called up Sharks 2 months ago and started working on this. It could have been a last night thing.
I mean, no one was talking about it. I mean,
this came out of left field, though.
Yeah. I find it interesting, though, that teams are getting more comfortable with trading just a while before the deadline. And we were talking about this before we started recording, where I think it wouldn't shock me if the NHL moved the trade deadline up.
They should. I want them to. You know what I wish the NHL would do? Move it. You telling them to move it up as earlier.
Yeah, make it earlier in the season. Yeah.
Where are we thinking? Are we thinking right after this week? So it'd be going into next Friday type of deal, right after the All-Star break.
I would say I think it should definitely be after the All-Star break. Maybe a week or two after the All-Star break. Because a lot of teams nowadays, it makes sense because, let's say you're a Stanley Cup contender like Dallas or Vegas or a team that is probably going to be shopping at the deadline for some of the best rental players they can get going into the playoffs. Yeah. You know, a lot of the times when you bring it up, especially you make a big trade, you're trading a first-round pick away, it takes time for those players to get a little bit of chemistry, and the trade deadline's a month and a half before the playoffs.
Yeah.
And based on how many teams have maybe 20 games left at that point in the season, 20-25, that's honestly not a whole lot of time to get that player into the system, see how he gels with the guys, gets comfortable there. And it makes sense to me, if you're a team like Dallas, for instance, that makes this trade for Granlund and CC now, just get them here now. Let them play here longer, get them acclimated in the system, let them build some chemistry with the guys, and then when you get to the playoffs, you don't have to worry about it.
Right. Why wait to make a trade all because the NHL media is man, the trade deadline sucks now. Well, we don't give a fuck. We want to get better now. We have a player in mind. We're going to go aggressively pursue him and try to make a trade right now.
Yeah, because you kind of saw that last year because, like, with the deadline, there was, like, a move that came out of nowhere. Vegas got
Hurdle at the last second.
But, he missed a bunch of time. He ended up coming back right at the end of the regular season. He was not good for them in the playoffs because they had no chemistry with the team.
Yeah.
And he's been much better this year for Vegas.
He's been great for them.
But he's had time with the team.
Yeah.
He knows the players better. He knows the system better. And he knows where he fits in now. And I think, if Hurdle wasn't injured and he was able to play like that month or two before the playoffs, I think Vegas probably beats Dallas in the first round.
I think Hurdle wasn't great for them in the playoffs in that trade. And we also saw last year that Winnipeg also acquired Monahan and actually Toffoli was a trade deadline one. But
Monahan was pretty ahead of the deadline.
Monahan was like in January or something like that. And then we also saw the Dallas Stars acquire Chris Tanev like early February it was. So Dallas, again, they just find their guy. They want to go get him and they get him. And I think it is a good idea for the NHL to move it up. I don't get why it's so late in the season. I thought it used to be like earlier in the season at one point. But I
remember the trade deadline like 10 years ago. It was like must-see TV. Like trades are coming in left and right. Like your phone's blowing up all day with trade notifications. Because I remember like I was in high school and I really started paying attention to the trade deadline. And I had I didn't really use Twitter much, but like I had like other like the NHL app, and I would get notifications all the time. I go home and put on NHL Network. They'd have TSN with Bob McKenzie breaking all these trades. I mean, now it's really, I would say, the only magical day left in the NHL where like all this crazy shit's gonna happen is free agent frenzy.
Free agent frenzy is one of my favorite times of year, outside of like the Stanley Cup Finals and the draft. Like that time period from, let's say Father's Day, let's say 2 weeks before Father's Day is when the Cup starts. So June 1st, let's use.
The whole month of June to like July 1st is kind of a wild ride.
It is, and even like the Eastern Conference Finals and like Western Conference Finals are exciting too. Like,
I mean, but last year was weird because we had the Stanley Cup Final like less than a week before the draft.
It was. The draft was like 5 days after the finals ended. Like it went. Usually though, like when the Game 7 happens, there's still like a week or a week and a half before.
Yeah, it was usually a couple weeks in between. I mean, last year was one of the deeper play. Like, I mean, the Stanley Cup Final went 7. Doesn't always go 7. I mean,
I think both conference finals games went deep too. Right?
No, I don't think they were because.
Florida beat the Rangers in 6 games.
And Edmonton beat Dallas in 6.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean,
I
deeper runs. I mean, but we had Game 7s in the second round of the playoffs with Edmonton. I mean.
First round, too, we had a few Game 7s.
Yeah, but typically that's not normal for the draft to be, like, literally the same week as Game 7 in the Stanley Cup Final.
And the draft is always the last Friday in June, so there's no changing that.
And then usually, like, right after because it's got to be wild for GMs, too, because you spend, if you're not a playoff team especially, you're hardcore scouting. Then, like, as soon as your season's over to the draft, you're scouting, meeting with your scouts probably every few days. Doing interviews, working out players, getting to know them to figure out who you want to draft. And, a team like Florida, it's kind of hard to do that, or Edmonton last year, because you have such a deep run, and then Florida wins the Cup. They're having partying the next couple of days. They're celebrating, and they're like, okay, we have to draft now. And then literally 2 days later, it's like, okay, who are we signing in free agency? Right,
like you have the parade for Florida on like that Tuesday and Wednesday. And then it's like, okay, in 2 days, we got to go to the Sphere for the draft. And then it's like, all right, now let's figure out who we want to sign in free agency on July 1st. So I think that entire turnaround, it's exciting, though. I wonder how chaotic it is for front offices and everybody to go through that cycle. I honestly wouldn't mind experiencing it or ask firsthand of really how chaotic it can be. Like,
I'd love to see kind of like a documentary made, just going through that process. I know teams do some behind the scenes, but I'd love to see because you have guys like in front offices that guys are just looking at contracts, trying to figure out who they want to sign, stuff like that. And then you have another team that's just draft, like they're looking at prospect scouting. You're meeting, and you have separate meetings with them. If GM, I feel like it's kind of a wild ride because you might have a meeting at like 8 a.m, going over with your scouts and your scouting department, going over draft plans, maybe doing last-minute interviews with players, and then you have another meeting at noon with, your pro scouts when you're talking about, okay, You have another guy who's like, because a lot of teams like the GM can't keep track of like every number in the salary. You have your numbers guy who's like, look, we have this much money. Then he works with the pro scouts and tells them like, okay, these are our targets. These are where we're projecting their contracts to be. Here's the ones we think we can sign.
Yeah, and then obviously,
and then you got to work the phones with them. Obviously, I think it makes it a little easier because you're not allowed to talk to them before the draft, like before July 1st, which is nice. So, but I mean, they talk
do,
because you have guys signing contracts literally the minute. I think you are allowed to talk like a day or two beforehand.
Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure it's like the legal tampering period or something is called. I don't know.
Yeah, but like up until then, though, like you don't really know. Like, so it gives GMs time to like really focus on the draft, and then you got to try. That's where your pro scouting department comes in, where you really have to have that robust system because the GM can't be involved in everything.
Right, the GM can only do so much. You have to schedule certain things, and even on top of it, doing interviews. You like June 30th.
I can imagine for most GMs, like their whole month of June is like they're in meetings all day.
I mean, yeah, I feel like if you're a GM, like especially let's say your team's not in the playoffs, right? From the last game
I think even if your
season,
team is in the playoffs, I mean, because as a GM outside, like when you you can't really do anything for your team anymore when they're in the playoffs.
That's true. You have to kind of watch. You have the playoff roster.
You let the coaches do their thing,
yeah.
But you also have to communicate with the coaches because when you're drafting, because even if you are in like a deep playoff run, it's like, look, we still got to draft somebody.
Yeah.
Like you want the coaches' input on who you think would be a good fit for the system. Because they're going to be
the one with them the most. They're going to be on the ice coaching them up and.
Yeah, I think this is what makes like pro sports, especially the NHL, so interesting with like how they do everything like quick. Like in the NFL, it's completely different where you have like, a month and a half after the Super Bowl before free agency opens, and then like a month later you have the draft.
Yeah, and the NFL is more wide open. The NHL, like there's a quick turnaround. Same thing with the NBA. The NBA is structured like the NHL, basically, with their schedule in the year and everything. And then you have the MLB
I would argue the draft doesn't really matter that much in basketball anymore.
No, it doesn't. Unless you have like a top 5 pick, it really doesn't. Like it's only 2 rounds, 60 picks. Like it doesn't matter. And then like for the MLB, you have the draft. It used to be in the middle of the season.
I never understood that.
Now they added a draft lottery that happens in the off season in like December or something.
I mean, do teams tank in baseball?
No, teams don't necessarily tank unless you're the Chicago White Sox of last year. I don't even know if they had 40 wins. They had like 120 losses.
Was there that good of a prospect available in the draft, or are they just that bad?
They were just that bad, and like their best pitcher, Garrett Crochet, got traded. But yeah, there's not really tanking in baseball, unless you're the Oakland A's, because that entire.
Well, they weren't tanking for draft picks; they were tanking a move.
Yeah, and their owner.
They didn't want people to go to their games.
No.
That's a completely different story.
No,
yeah.
no.
The owner is a POS.
Yes, I fucking hate that owner. I feel bad for A's fans. Yeah, like the MLB is weird with everything, and it basically MLB season seems nonstop. So you can categorize the MLB, NBA, and NHL as like 3 hectic.
I would argue that the NHL is the most hectic, though.
I agree.
Because you have to get ready for a 7-round draft, and then your team is twice the size of an NBA team.
Right.
And then you have your minor league teams you have to worry about.
And on top of it, now you could have 10, 11 picks in that 7-round draft, too, for example. Like, who the fuck knows? Maybe a Stanley Cup team has to go out and pick 9 times in the 7 rounds. Like, that's not far-fetched. Now, does it happen often? No, because in order to get that Stanley Cup team, you have to trade away draft capital. So that's very, very rare, but you never know. Shit happens. So being an NHL team, the turnaround's nuts. I admire it, too. I honestly really do admire it. It seems like a fun job, genuinely.
Probably a little stressful.
Of course. Probably pulling a few gray hairs by...
Well, there's a reason why a lot of them are bald.
Yeah, most of them.
I mean, they're also older guys, too.
They're also like in their 50s, 60s.
Especially when your team's not doing well and you're kind of on the hot seat and you're trying to figure out what moves you. It's a tough job. I mean, I know us as Sabres fans are really hard on our GM. Like, I emphasize a little bit with him where, like, yeah, it's a stressful job and I get it's tough. And unless you win the cup every year, no one's ever going to be 100% happy with you.
Of course. Like, you have to learn you have to know how to build a roster. And sometimes, like, you could have the most talented players in the world, but they just don't work out on any team. Call us the Buffalo Sabres. Like, The players are talent on the roster. It's just, and that happens with other teams around the league too. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe it'll happen with Chicago where they have Connor Bedard, but they just cannot build a good roster around him.
I don't see them being good for a while.
They're not going to be good for like 4 or 5. It feels like San Jose is surpassing them at this point.
They got nothing.
They don't have a ton of draft capital, do they?
The Blackhawks, I don't know how many extra picks they have. I know they at least have all of their picks.
It feels like they're definitely a lot slower in their rebuild process.
I mean, I'm a little concerned for Connor Bedard.
For himself, or
just in that situation where I don't really see it getting better for a while. So they have 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks this year. They have their pick and Toronto's pick, and then second round they have their pick and Dallas's pick.
Okay. So again, late first and second rounders from Toronto and Dallas.
Yeah. I mean, they have some interesting prospects like Frank Nazar. I'm trying to. I don't even know all these players' names. What's the defenseman's name?
He was just picked in this year's draft.
Kevin Korchinski.
Yeah,
looks like he got sent down to the American League.
Not him. Who did they pick in this year's draft? He's also a defenseman. Levshinov.
I like him. Yeah,
that's who it is. He's gonna be good.
Yeah, is he playing in the AHL right now?
No, he's not. He's still in juniors.
Yeah, no, he's playing in the AHL.
He wasn't even in juniors. He went to Michigan State. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, no, he's playing in the AHL right now.
He is okay. How's he doing in the A?
36 games, 2 goals, 9 assists, 11 points.
Okay,
but it's a defenseman.
I'd expect him to be on the roster next year. Same with Frank Nazar, and I would love if Nazar, Korchinski, and Levshinov all pan out. I think they have that core right there with Bedard.
Yeah, they're interesting. They ended up trading Taylor Hall. They got a third-round pick for him.
I don't know.
While retaining salary on Mikael Granlund, I don't.
At least the salary.
I don't know if their GM is the right GM for that. I don't know. They're still. I think Chicago at least is 3 to 4 years away, in my opinion, from contending.
Unless Bedard goes.
We'll see how patient Connor Bedard is, because
he does not look like he's having fun out there.
Because I feel like you got to remember, though, with a lot of first overall picks, they're usually being drafted into a really bad situation. And sometimes you get teams like, Edmonton, when they picked Connor McDavid, they kind of turned it around pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But they also had talented players around. It was just they never could put it together. And then with McDavid, they were able to finally take the next step. And Draisaitl as well. I mean, Austin Matthews transformed Toronto instantly, but they had been building for a couple of years.
They had Mitch Marner already.
They had smart free agent signings and, made smart trades. But then you have other teams like, Buffalo, where you're getting drafted into a dumpster fire. And, some players are better at riding it out and being patient. Some players, after 4 or 5 years of not winning, I'm kind of over this. Can we move on? But I can't necessarily blame the players when I would expect, if you're a top 3, top 5 pick, after 4 or 5 years, you should be a competitive team.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't. I feel bad for Bedard. I feel bad for Bedard.
Okay. He's only 19 years old still.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of hockey in him.
His love of hockey is gone. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I don't think it's gone. I think he's definitely frustrated. I mean, no one wants to play on a losing team.
He's never lost this much in his entire life.
You've played sports. We all played. We both played organized sports. Not every team you were on was amazing.
Right, that is true.
You have tough seasons. The winning seasons are a lot more fun than the losing seasons. But I've been on some bad hockey teams, some good ones. It's still fun at the end of the day. It's just no one likes losing.
That's true. I mean, who knows? Maybe he is internally having fun. He just doesn't
he's got to learn to take some of the pressure off of himself, because I think he blames himself a lot, just from what I see from watching him play with his body language. Is especially when he's on the ice and the other team scores, he's getting pissed at himself. It's like, okay, yeah, you do want a little bit of a chip on your shoulder to motivate you to be better, but it's not all you, man. It's a team sport. I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on him internally from himself. I got drafted here. I'm going to turn this team around.
Yeah, maybe I don't want to say he's feeling the pressure, but he feels it in a way where he wants to have a positive impact on the team. He was drafted here to turn the organization around. What if he
was the most hyped prospect I've seen in the draft since Connor McDavid. So
What if I don't know this for certain, but what if he's comparing himself to when Patrick Kane got drafted first overall to Chicago. He's like, he brought Stanley Cups. I know they built a team fast around Kane. They already had Taves. You go and get Keith and Seabrook and Crawford and everything, but like maybe he's the thief of joy right now is comparison, and maybe that's happening to him. And I mean,
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I mean, he's only 19.
I know he's
old.
only 19.
He'll be okay.
Yeah,
I'm not worried.
He'll be okay. I'm not worried yet.
I mean, I still think the Blackhawks are going to be really bad for the next couple of years, though.
Connor Bedard's going to be sick, though. I love watching.
Yeah, I think he'll keep getting better. They really need to get him some line mates.
Badly.
Like, I know the rumor on the street is that if Mikael Granlund is a UFA, Chicago's going to pursue him hard.
Go get Mikko. Go get Brock Besser for his line mates. They
got money to spend.
They got a lot of money to spend.
And, they can sign Rantanen and Besser to big contracts and still have plenty of money to sign Bedard.
Then they're going to the playoffs, am I right?
So who's going to stop the puck from going in?
Throw me in that.
Who's going to play defense?
Yeah, you're defenseman. Yeah, throw Chris a goaltender. Why not?
Shit.
I'll go play second line center. We're back. Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're back. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
It's going to end it for today's episode. If you guys enjoy all of our content, all of our socials are down below as well as the subscribe button. If you guys are listening on Apple and Spotify, head over to our YouTube and Instagram where we post exclusive content 7 days a week, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.